Oh, so amazing. So here we are, everyone, for those of you who are joining us for our last class of season 4 of the Essentials. Oh, it's like bittersweet. Like Polly said, it just goes by so fast. But here we are, alas. Welcome to the Essentials. If you're just joining in now, we are a series of free online webinars. The people, we have become the series. We are one with the Essentials now. Yeah, but the Essentials are free online classes about navigating the photojournalism industry, made in partnership with grassroots photo organizations working toward inclusivity, equity, and access in the media. So that would be the Everyday Projects, Black Women Photographers, and Photo Wings. Hello, I am Danielle Villasana, one of your co-hosts. I am a photojournalist and community team member of the Everyday Projects. And the Everyday Projects is a global community of visual storytellers, all committed to using imagery to combat harmful misperceptions and to rise above persistent inequality. And we do a lot of things as a nonprofit to meet that goal, such as education, providing support and structure to the diverse and worldwide everyday community. And I'm here with the amazing Polly, founder of Black Women Photographers.
Thank you, Danielle. As she said, I'm Polly, the founder of Black Women Photographers, and you can learn more about what we do at blackwomenphotographers.com. And Essentials wouldn't be possible without our amazing partner, Photo Wings, who help make these classes free and accessible to all.
Yes, and thank you again so much to those working tirelessly behind the scenes. Trust me, they are nonstop working behind the scenes, and that is members of our community team at the Everyday Project. So just a shout out, high five, hug to Rebecca Gibeon, Fiona Washira, as well as Austin Merrill and Peter DeCampo, who are the co-founders of the Everyday Project.
Amazing. We're continuing this weekend series with, again, our final class of season 4. I can't believe it. If this is your first time, just again, drop your questions in the Q&A box. We've been having so many great questions, so please do keep them coming. Our speakers are here because they want to help you learn and answer your questions, so don't be shy. Just ask them in the Q&A box, and we'll try to get to them at the very end. And no matter what stage of your practice you are at, though, we are confident you're going to learn something new from them.
Yes, and just last time, it may not be the last though. These are our websites and social media handles, because these videos will be recorded and available on our websites in English, French, and Spanish. So follow us for notifications on when those go up, as well as all the other really super cool things that all of these organizations are doing. And with that, here we are with our final speaker of the Essentials. Maheder Haileselassie is here with us, and it is such an honor to have Maheder with us to finish off this series on an intimate, quiet note of community, thinking about all the meanings of that word and how you can imbue that in your work and in life. Maheder is a photographer from and based in Ethiopia and contributor to Everyday Africa. Maheder just won the Prince Claus Fund Seed Award. So major congrats, Maheder, in person to you. And also, she's one of this year's Contemporary African Photography winners. That is huge, y'all. That is like a big deal. We basically have a star in our presence. So we're very, very lucky to have Maheder here. And not only is she being recognized for the incredible work she's doing as a photographer, but she's also founder of the Center for Photography in Ethiopia, a learning platform for emerging photographers. And her accomplishments don't stop there. Maheder's work has been exhibited at numerous venues, museums, and festivals around the world, and she's attended the World Press Photo Masterclass. Also, like, not an easy thing to do, y'all, so amazing. And the New York Times Portfolio Review. She's collaborated with institutions such as the University of Cambridge, the Ethiopian Institute of Architecture, and the Goethe Institute on projects that look at the intersection of photography, history, anthropology, and architecture. Basically, Maheder is a genius. Thank you so much for being with us here today. We are very, very lucky and so honored to have you here with us, Maheder. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daniele, and the Everyday Projects team. Daniele, for the very kind introduction. Yeah, and thank you, the Everyday Projects team, for organizing this amazing discussion, this amazing platform. Yeah, so shall I share my screen now?
Yes, the stage is yours. Take it away. Beautiful. We can see everything perfectly, and I'm excited for this. We all are.
Yeah, me too, me too. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me in this discussion or presentation, whatever you want to call it. Oh, okay. So what we're going to be covering today, I'm going to start with the basics of building a community of photographers, how to do it, pretty basic, and then once you have this community of photographers, how to bring your images to the community or the society at large. I'm going to show a couple of examples of how we did it under CPE, the Center for Photography. And then finally, I'm going to speak about the community and building personal projects, specifically from the angle of my own personal project between yesterday and tomorrow. So yeah, why do we need to build a community of photographers? I think for me personally, the first reason would be the fact that so many photographers, especially nowadays, are freelancers. And as a freelancer life can be a bit lonely at times. I think it's very important that one has, as a freelance photographer, one has a community or a couple of other photographers to look up to or to discuss or work with. And additionally, it's also nice to create something beyond yourself in a way, especially in developing countries like Ethiopia. We had, when I started photography in 2014 to 16, there were basically no photography schools. We had one photography school that used to provide a few classes, but they were mainly on camera adjustment. So there was no really any platform to learn visual literacy or critical photography courses. So that's also one of the reasons why I started Center for Photography in Ethiopia, which is a learning and a discussion platform, a very informal one, to be exact, for emerging photographers in Ethiopia. So how I started it was, luckily I initially had funding when I started it. But to be honest, I don't believe that it's really necessary to have any funding, especially if you are at the beginning stage of your career. So you don't really need that much funding. Usually people need funding to pay for space and to pay for mentors, etc. But you can use cafeterias, different cultural institutions, and different educational institutions as a starting point. Yeah, and if you are at a very early stage of your career, you can reach out to different photographers on social media. You can, for example, write or call 10 different photographers, and you can maybe meet up 6 or 7 of them for coffee, and then start discussing, start designing some different activities. For example, you can have photo works where you can shoot, you can go to places, plan trips, and create different projects. You can also have screenings where you can watch different documentary videos or documentaries on photography. Yeah, you can also have peer reviews. For example, on the left of the slide, you can see that we have printed out different images of photographers, and we used to peer review a lot. I think that I believe that's really important. You can also design trainings, outreach programs, and exhibitions as you go further and as you develop your project is more in depth. Yeah, so one of the most important points for me when I started out was having a mentor. I think it's really important that one finds a mentor who is really interested in educating photographers and creating impact. So working with mentors, I think at the starting stage of my photography journey, I didn't really use the mentors I had well enough. And it took me a couple of years to be exact how to best work with a mentor, to learn how to best work with a mentor. So the first lesson I had was to learn their strongest skills, like for example, if you want to become a wedding photographer, it's best that you learn from a wedding photographer. So you really need to visualize what you want to do with your photography practice and then learn from someone who is really good at that. Yeah, and you also have to be ready to do 80% of the work. So one of the mistakes I did was taking some of my mentors' time for granted. So what I would suggest that, because I mean, mentors can be really kind and they can give you as much energy and as much dedication to you, but at the same time, you have to realize that like no amount of payment can be a compensation for the time and energy that they dedicate to you. So as much as possible, it's really great to be as disciplined and as consistent as possible to produce the best of works. Yeah, so let's say that now you have a community of maybe just 7 or 8 photographers, and you are working together and you are developing this different set of projects, or you have images in your hands. So the next step can be bringing these images to the community or bringing the community into your works. So I just want to show a couple of examples. The first one is the Photography History Archive project we did. So this was for this project, it was more like a 10 days workshops. What we did was we brought together 6 architecture students with 6 photographers for the workshops, and we looked at family albums as a starting point of looking into archives as a form of archive. So we asked them to bring their family albums from home, and then we had a look at it and we had a reflection on it, and then all of them went out to the city, some of them to their home, and re-photographed some scenes, or just photograph on their produce photographs that are part of their reflection. So we covered the history part, the archive part through the family albums, and then we encourage them to go out and photograph, and then at the end we installed this archive images together with the newly produced works on one of the oldest historical buildings in the city, which is the National Theatre. So it's the most, it's one of the busiest areas of the city because it's obviously a theater, but at the same time, we had, we brought in this different elements of photography, history, and archive into the project by installing the images onto the building. Yeah, this is one good example. We also installed some images on a cafeteria wall. I think you really need to be creative with space. You don't really need you don't necessarily need galleries or other paid spaces to showcase some of your works. You can be creative with what you have. This is one of our students, Lab, who used to be an architecture student, installing some of the images on a cafeteria wall. Yeah, I think this is by far one of my favorite projects that I've ever done. It looks really beautiful, and It was an amazing experience with the visitors and the cafeteria users. I just want to quickly show you a video of how we installed these images on the building. Sorry if it's too loud or not edited enough.
We can't hear the sound, but this is really cool. But I just wanted to
Okay.
let you know, yeah.
You cannot hear the sound?
No, unless that's just me, but I don't think so. Maybe because
It's okay. I don't think
Okay.
that it matters that much anyway.
okay. All right. This is really cool.
So what we did was we fragmented. We didn't print the image on a large banner and then put it on the wall, but we fragmented the image into different parts. It's also part of the metaphor that photography being the fragment of the truth. And at the same time, it's also a symbol of literally building the image on a building. So it's partly bringing the architecture into the image and the image into the architecture. So as you can see, the community engages, and there is a lot of discussion and questions, inquiries, interrogations sometimes. Okay. Yeah, so this is the final installation. I think we didn't really keep track of the numbers, but quite a number of people have seen this exhibition. It was there, I think, for a week or so. So it was really interesting. The second project, the second example I just wanted to show you is we called it Photo Gadget, where we took a small studio with a black background to one of the busiest centers in the city, which we call Megananya. It's a part of, it's where most of the bus terminals and the train terminals are, and there is a lot of traffic. So as you can see it on the left, some of the students are photographing. So what we did was just install the mini studio and then photograph the passerbys. Whoever was willing enough to be photographed, we took their portraits. And in some occasions, you can see Fikrta, one of our students here, giving out printed portraits. For whenever possible, would we would print and give away portraits of the people, but we mostly just photographed. Okay, I just want to show you a video of it again, because I think it makes much more sense. This is the exhibition, a very small exhibition we did afterwards. Sorry, the video is a bit shaky. So we didn't really think of it, think much of it when we were working on the project, but the result was an amazing, especially when I look at it now, it's an amazing documentation of the travelers and the city residents. And this is how we exhibited at the end. We had a small wall, we had a small space. Yeah, and some of the architects helped with designing the exhibition. It's a bit playful. I don't know if I would do it the same now, but it was quite engaging for the community, and some of the people we photographed on the streets, they came to the exhibition, and it was really interesting, both as an archive and as an engagement with the community. Okay, just a couple of more points on this is, these are just two examples, but we've done a lot more. I believe that it's a really difficult, not necessarily difficult, but challenging is a better word, a challenging task. Yeah, you really don't want to be carrying everything on your shoulders. You have to share tasks, and you really have to work within the community or together with the community of photographers, and you really don't want to let yourself burn out, so you have to be careful on that. I think that's the takeaway. Yeah, and secondly, you would want to work on your personal projects together with this different set of activities. You really want to push your personal project on the side as well. So speaking of personal projects, the third section is the community and building a personal project. I was part of, in 2018, I was part of a collaborative project that was named Shawa, a geographical passion, that involved with different painters, photographers, animators, anthropologists, historians, and curators. And it was a really interesting group. This was the first, so what we did basically was, what happened was we had, we traveled together, we took a trip to this different historical sites in Shawa, which is a little bit outside of Addis. This was one of the historical sites that we went to. This picture was actually taken on the first day. It was in Ankober, which is where the Emperor Menelik, one of the palaces of Emperor Menelik exists. So it was a very interesting collaboration. So after we visited different historical, yeah, this is also another image from our visit. So after we visited different historical sites, we went back to the city in Addis, and we have a few days for reflection, and then we produced an exhibition. This is the first image that I did in 2018 that was part of the exhibition that we did then. So this is also the image where my recent project Between Yesterday and Tomorrow was started at. Yeah, so it took 5 years to continue that project, and turns out that I really like sitting on work, but yeah, that was where it initially started. So Between Yesterday and Tomorrow, it's a project that revolves around history and memory. So history is for, so I talk about not just what happened, but how do we remember as a community, and of course, personally to me as well, how we remember what happened. So our Ethiopia's visual representation, our visual representation starts in the 19th century with European travelers that came to Ethiopia and created different engravings, maps, photographs, and drawings. So I used this different archival materials from the 19th century together with my personal archive, which is photos that I find in my own family album. And then I added my own archive as well, like not my family album, but the images I produced over the years. And then I also produced new images for the project. So this is the superimposition of different archival materials, basically. Yeah, so the first image was done in 2018, and then 5 years later, I again had the chance, so in 2023, that means, I again had the chance to travel to the same region, but this time to a very specific location where my great-great-great-grandparents were born in and lived in. So I was born in Addis Ababa, I was raised in Addis, but my parents are from outside Addis, and I've never really visited where they came from. So this was my first time. And in a way, it was, I can't really describe the emotion of it, but it was more like a feeling and a sensation, because it has to do with this longing for my ancestral lineage and my ancestors, standing on the ground and looking at this beautiful, really mountainous landscape, but at the same time, really harsh and challenging landscape. So it was a little bit of longing for my ancestors, but at the same time, looking into the future and feeling a little bit melancholic for myself and my generations to come. So yeah, landscape is part of a heritage for Ethiopians, and we are really impacted by it. So in a way, this image is me trying to capture that emotion and feeling and express that into photography. So for this project, I also used I was really interested in looking at different statues and monuments that I took photographs of over the years that are in one way or another important to me. So the statues are in one form, these are national memories, social memories. So they are part of the collective memory of our country. But at the same time, some of them are also a personal memory to me. So I tried also to combine and express that the identity is not just a collective memory or not just a personal memory, but it's a combination or is overlapping of the two within the same image, but a different time and space. I also used specifically identity photographs that I found in my family album and combined them with different images, archive images of Ethiopian rulers and everyday people. So when I combine this image, usually what happens is a new being or a new person emerges from the combination of two portraits. It's in a way, it speaks to me, the shift speaks to me to the idea that memory shifts and identity shifts, and memory is really fluid and not very fixed or very tangible. This is Aksum obelisk, which is 3,000 years old, more than 3,000 years old, and it's a testament for the rich Ethiopian culture and history. So at the same time, recently I've been to Aksum and multiple times, and it's one of the best experiences. But at the same time, recently a war broke out in the region, and a massacre happened. It was a real tragedy. So this was my way of saying that there's the shift in memory, basically. So what was once a symbol of pride, a symbol of history, is now in a way shifting to represent a part of a tragedy. The Red Sea is also an interesting element because Ethiopia is currently a landlocked country, and we lost the privilege to the Red Sea in 1992 to Eritrea. And since then, the Red Sea have been a really big part of our community. Like it's nostalgic to us, and we hear stories, but very few people in Ethiopia have ever seen a sea or like have ever been there. So it's part of our nostalgic identity. So yeah, I use this archival maps on top of landscapes to represent that. Yes, so wrapping up, yeah, I just want to say, I think it's really important to collaborate with other experts from different disciplines for this project that I just presented. I think, I believe collaborating with or meeting with different people from different various disciplines really helped me in a lot of ways. One, it really informed my practice, and it also allowed me to pick the brains of this really critical experts. Yeah, and even though it was 5 years later that I continued the project, I still gave a call for a couple of them. I think one historian and another one an anthropologist. I gave them a call and asked for their critical opinions. They sent me different materials, and it was basically it's basically a shortcut to finding different informations. Sometimes, yeah, I think it's really helpful that photographers and artists generally collaborate or create a network or a friendship with people from different disciplines. I think it's really helpful, and even not just in terms of information, but even showing your work for people who doesn't really understand photography, but who has really critical opinions of history is really important, and they give you different important perspectives to develop and enrich your project. And yeah, finally, I think it's really helpful to look into yourself, but at the same time, try to look at the issues that bothers your community and your society at large. So community, in a sense, is not necessarily the people that are in the same area, but it can be people that share similar interests as you. It can be seen in a wider perspective as in your city or your country at large. Yeah, thank you.
Yes. A lot of claps and a lot of great comments in the chat about your beautiful and powerful presentation. Thank you so much. I think I'll just dive right into the questions. Some great questions here. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A box. The first question is, how does one find a mentor? Is there any way to get connected to the community of photographers in Ethiopia virtually? And perhaps even ask one of them to be a mentor?
So the first question is, how does one find a mentor?
Yes.
For example, in Ethiopian context, we don't really have that many established photographers. I think the easiest way would be through either contacts. For example, if you have a friend that has a mentor, you can ask them to link you or to connect you. Otherwise, social media is always the easiest way. If you have their email, you can write them directly and ask them, like, you don't necessarily have to ask them that they become your mentor immediately, but just ask for a portfolio review, like 20-minute session or 30-minute session, preferably in person, otherwise online. And then once you have that relationship and they know that you are really serious, I think if they are really interested, if the person is really interested in education and in creating impact, they would, most people would be willing to help out.
Polly, you're muted. And also, Maheder, if you want to stop your screen share so people can, yeah, there we go. Perfect. All right, going back off.
Yes, thank you. I thought I was going to get through this whole weekend without doing that. I'm sorry. Your work departs a bit from traditional photojournalism, which is stunning and beautiful. What would you recommend to folks who want to learn more about conceptual art and photography and community engaged photography?
So I started out pretty much as a classical documentary photographer. And then halfway through that, I also worked as a photojournalist. So there was definitely This doesn't really happen overnight, and this was a transitional process. So what really helped me was one, this collaboration and these different activities. They allowed me to have, so basically with photography practice, I think you are, at the end of the day, you are what you consume. So being interested in politics, economics, and different societal issues is really important. And then thinking of those issues and how thinking of a way trying to find a way to translate those issues into your work conceptually. And secondly, looking at different works of photographers, not just the images, but the text as well. I think what really helped me personally is reading texts, reading materials, and trying to understand a specific work of that photographer and how they interpreted the text or the idea in the text into an image. So I think that's where most of the learning happens, at least for me. And then on the thirdly, what really helped me was this collaboration with different experts, especially, for example, for this Between Yesterday and Tomorrow project. After I completed the images, I was really struggling with coming up with the text. So I showed the work to a writer who is really an expert on theology and Ethiopian history, and also knows this little metaphors, important metaphors in Ethiopian context, basically, who's a really scholar in the Ethiopian history. So he really helped me find different books, very critical books on history and memories that were written by Ethiopian people. And otherwise, I would have never, ever came across those on Google, even if I searched the whole day. So yeah, I think showing your work for different experts and yeah, trying to read texts and looking at the works of different photographers. So at some point you will land up on your style, on your voice, and yeah, different ideas.
So read. Very important. Who knew that photography would be so much about reading and research? Which I was kind of disappointed to find out about. I was like, oh, I have to read and research? Why? I just want to take pictures. But it's so true. It really makes a difference. Thank you, Maheder, for all of this super valuable advice. So to continue with the theme of collaboration, you've mentioned it already a little bit, but sometimes collaboration can be difficult though too, or working with others or working as a team, because you might have a really strong opinion or vision on how something should go or how it should be. Have you found that in your collaborative work? How did you get through moments where maybe people didn't see eye to eye? Do you have any tips on how to successfully work with others? I can also imagine a situation in which you're just so lovely to work with and things just move and go very smoothly. But if you have any tips for us on how to do the same, that would be really wonderful.
Yeah, so turns out I'm not that smooth after all, Danny. Yeah, so teamwork, like in whatever scenario, is really difficult, I think. So I think the end goal is to have as much fun doing it. So the process should really, especially with creating the community and sustaining it and doing these different activities, exhibitions and such, it really has to be fun. Otherwise, it will end up being a serious work, and it will really take away the fun out of the exhibition as well at the end. So yeah, collaborations are a little bit difficult. So for me, that's also one of the lessons I've learned. You really have to let go some things when you are working in groups. You really have to listen. You have to let go. At the same time, that's also part of the process. You will learn how to work together with people, how to manage people, and when to let go and when to really confront and stand on your ground. Yeah. I
That's-
don't know if that answers the question.
Sorry, what was the last thing you said?
I don't know if that answers your question.
Oh
but-
yeah, 100%. I was furiously typing most of what you said because yeah, really, you have to let go, you have to listen, which can be hard to do at first, but like you said, that's part of the process. The more you do it, the more you'll learn, and to just try to have as much fun as possible. So all very helpful. So I want to know more about this, even just personally myself. I like to be able to ask whatever I want. No, but so you mentioned that you sit on your work for years. How do you know when a project is ready to be seen or shared, and where do you even begin with that? I know there's this sort of conundrum sometimes that people have with like, well, I've been pitching this story and it doesn't seem like any publications are interested, or I'm working on this story and I want publications to kind of know what's going on, or editors to know what's going on, but by posting it on social media, I don't want to shoot myself in the foot. So do you have any tips or advice on those two sort of questions, conundrums? How do you know when something is even ready or done? And then what are your first steps in trying to get that work out into the world?
So I had no idea. So to be honest, I had no idea that that's how I really work. I thought I was just lazy with my projects, to be honest. But it's really, so I realized that's how I work because of my mentor. So it's really important, helpful that you have someone in your circle that understands photography and that understands your style, or that really understands your practice. So I've done this once, and not just once, but 2 or 3 times. I do have like a collection. I would have a collection of images, so they are not complete. I feel like they are incomplete, but I still don't know what to work, like how to use them to complete them. So how to complete them necessarily. So that's where I think the mentor comes. So when it the more you show your work for different curators, gallerists, or mentors, the more ideas and feedbacks they will give you. So most of the time on this project, people will tell me, okay, this is incomplete. This cannot be printed or published, but maybe you add this and that. So I will have that information. I will note it down and just sit on it, and then I will show it to another curator or another mentor, and then they will say something else. And then when the time comes and I have this idea, I will start working on it and then keep showing it to my mentor. Yeah, so at some point, I think this is also my problem, because I never feel like it's really complete. Anything is really complete. So at some point, you really have to say, okay, I'm done. Let me just get it out and then see what's our things. So once I feel like it's done, I will start submitting to different festivals, different publications, reach out to people. I usually don't post projects on Instagram, but I think it's a very good platform for many photographers as well. Yeah.
No, those are some really good points there. Even the last point about even posting the work on Instagram. I know for the editors I've spoken to in the past, some places consider that as published. So depending on where you want your work to be shown or received, or whatever the case may be, if you already have it on Instagram, they may not accept it. And that brings us to another question here. You mentioned the different things you apply to. How do you go about that? Like, any advice and tips for applying to, whether it's contests, grants, exhibitions? How do you keep track of these different opportunities? Is a process that works for you?
Okay, so I'm still learning. I'm still very much learning, because I also don't consider myself like an established photographer. So I'm still at a very early process of learning these things. So what I try to do is like have a list of things that I really want to apply to the first of the month. and then try to keep track of them and try to find time to apply for them from time to time. So I don't apply to everything. And most of the things I really want to apply for, they usually are past deadline because I'm I'm too tied up doing some other things usually. But yeah, trying listing out competitions or grants, and then preparing 2 weeks, 3 weeks before the deadline, and then showing it to different people if they think it's okay, is very helpful. But at the end of the day, I think applying to maybe grant is a very complicated process, but the festivals or competition, it's usually super easy once you have the completed project with your artist statement and your biography ready. It's a very small step from that. So the first thing, the foremost thing is completing the project.
No, definitely. And I think we mentioned this previously in the chat and other classes. Our previous seasons, we have several classes that unpack grants and applying to grants and other opportunities in depth. So please go visit our sites to replay those conversations. There's another question here about the use of just like old images. How do you get the license to use those old images and photographs in your project?
Yeah, that's a very interesting and a very difficult question. That's also, I mean, this idea of who owns the image is also another complicated subject for me. So one peace of mind I had at the beginning of the project was that if I'm trying to license every image that I want to use in my project, I would never be done with the project, and this would just take too much time. So what I wanted to do was be creative and try to find ways that to use the archive images without necessarily make them at the front of or at the center of the body of work. So that's how I go about it. But other than that, like these are images that are made in the 19th century in Ethiopia. And as an Ethiopian, how do we say that, like, or as an African or as a citizen of any country, if there are archival materials that were done by different people from like 200 or 100 years back, how do you say that someone owns that image so you cannot really use it? So I don't want to use it in a very explicit or open manner, but at the same time, I wanted to incorporate them in my project.
Amazing. There's another question here in the box. What are some newspapers and publications that folks can follow in Ethiopia specifically?
In Ethiopia. Online?
Yeah, I think it's just like
Okay.
popular news publications is what they're asking for.
Oh, okay. So this fortune is interesting. The Reporter Ethiopia for news. That's major newspapers here. I think they are definitely online. You can find them online. At this Zebi, I can type it down in the chat if it's should I type it in the chat or?
Great, thank you so much.
Okay.
Awesome, thank you, Maheder. So as someone, well, I should say Polly does too. I think a lot of people actually in this industry, you know, we wear a lot of different hats. And thankfully, I think this industry has seen a surge of initiatives that work towards building community. So that's a great thing. But from one many hat wearer to another, I would like to ask you, how do you juggle the work that you do in the community? I mean, you're the founder of this incredible organization, which is no small feat. How do you juggle that sort of time commitment with the time commitment of also just doing your own work as a photographer? You know, the gear shift, you know, spiritually and philosophically it might be different, or maybe it's the same. How do you handle those two different branches of who you are and what you do as a photographer?
So at this point, let me start from the beginning. So at the beginning, I was also at the very early stage of my career when I started the Center for Photography for Ethiopia. So I was at the early stage, but at the same time, I really had to do it. So I gave 2 to 3 years of my time, putting aside my personal projects and really focused on developing this community. So I took a lot of burden on my shoulder, and I took a lot of responsibility, I think. And at the same time, we built a really amazing platform, and we had a lot of success doing it. But in a way, it also, truth to be told, it affected my personal projects a little. I have to be honest. But after that, what I did was take it slowly, because I have already given it 2-3 years of my time. I decided to take it a little bit slow, and also sort of diversify the tasks, and then take time to focus on my own personal project and then build it. So once I have, I'm happy with my personal project, and I complete a few of them that I have on my hands, and I will get back to it in them. So, but if I didn't start out giving it 100% of my time initially, if I had known, I think how I would have done it was give it maybe focus on a couple of projects for 3 to 4 months, and then focus on my own personal projects for another 3-4 months. So design it in a way that some of the months in a year would be allocated to my personal project, and some of it would be for the community project. But at the same time, that's just me, and that's just how I work, because I can't really multitask that well. If I'm focused, I really have to be focused on something. So if you're not like that, and if you can multitask, you can definitely schedule it, maybe some of the work on the morning and some of your personal projects in the afternoon, but I can't really do that.
Yeah, time management is so important in this work that we do. And I love, again, the fact that you said, this is the way that I do it, right? Which for you means that whatever you're doing, you're 100% focused on what that is. And if it means that you have to step out a little bit from your own personal work or step out of the community work, it will still be there when you come back. And that's a common theme that keeps coming up, over and over again too, is we have this fear that if we're not, if we have our hands and feet in one thing, that the other one is going to suffer. But really, as long as you're putting all of your energy into whatever it is that you're doing, it's okay. It can be there. You can revive it. You can,
Exactly.
you can. Yeah. So I love that reminder as well, because I think that's definitely a fear that we have sometimes in this industry, that somehow our work or who we are will become irrelevant, when actually that's not the case. So thank you again for that reminder. And this might be a funny question, it's kind of one of those things where it's okay, talk about yourself, or but I have confidence that you can answer this. What's it like to be a leader? I mean, to get people interested, to stay involved, to keep the momentum up, to keep people passionate about what you are passionate about. I mean, how do you do that? How do you keep people focused and interested and engaged?
People
In the
need-
community aspect of the work, not speaking of your photography work. You just put your
Yes,
picture
yes,
up and everyone's, yeah.
So other photographers, you mean?
In your community work, I just wanted to clarify that
Mhm.
your photography is, you just put the picture out there and everyone's like, oh. So no, I meant your community work. How do you keep people involved in being as passionate about the community work that you are?
Okay. I think when you start out, it has to really be, because it's not just with CPE, but before CPE, there was another group of like 17 photographers. So things didn't work out at the end, but how it started was really still very super interesting to me. And even now there is another group that's forming here in Addis. So I think the most important part is when you start out and when you choose people to work with, it really has to be people who who can see beyond their own personal success and who really want to create or influence people beyond their own circles. So at the beginning stages of creating the community, you really have to be careful in trying to work with those photographers or those people that are really interested in not only their own development and success, but supporting others as well. So once you have that sort of people, I think it's really easy to keep the momentum. And as long as you share tasks and as long as you try to make it as much fun as possible and not boring or burdensome or really grueling, if it's fun, it can really be doable, I think.
I definitely agree with that. And there's another question here saying, what are some of the biggest challenges with access into the industry, and how have you been able to overcome those challenges?
Challenges of what?
Of getting access into the industry.
I think at the end of the day, it really goes down to the work that you're doing. Sometimes you can be lucky that the thing or the idea that you're working on may overlap with this global issue and you can really be seen quickly. And other times you'd be working on a project for years and you may not be even noticed. But I think at the end of the day, it really comes down to the work that you're doing in a way.
And speaking of the work that you're doing, another person asked here, how do you balance your creative side and your contemporary art and photojournalism? And when did you decide that you are this type of photographer? From their own experience, they try to discover all kinds of photography and they feel a little lost in the middle of what kind of photography they are good at.
As I mentioned before, through the process, I found out that I am a very slow worker. I don't really want to do things really, really fast. I would rather sit on things. So I did photojournalism, and I was not really happy about how things go really fast and how fast I need to produce images and how fast I'm moving from location to location. So I didn't know that this creative or contemporary part of me was what I was passionate about back then, but I just knew that this photojournalism was not necessarily, of course I still do it from time to time, but from doing it full time for a little bit, I realized that that was just not me, and I really don't want to do it full time. And I found out that I don't really enjoy it as much as my other colleagues. I just enjoyed the part that I get to have access to all of these different important events, but I didn't really enjoy the past process. And then with other documentary styles, of course I did do them, but I also so it's the same process again and again. But at the end of the day, when I started doing this contemporary work, I really enjoyed the research part of it, the depths that required that it required from me. I really enjoyed discussing with different people and trying to build the project. I really enjoyed the process of it, the process of building it. And I was really passionate that in the morning when I was on my laptop starting to work on it, I would really get excited. So that and that feeling of excitement was what told me this is what I'm really passionate about, and this is where at the end of the day my voice or my practice lies. I think you really need to find that passion that made you want to be a photographer in the first place. And I didn't really I found myself that I'm not, I found out that I'm not as passionate about working. I'm not as passionate about, I'm not as passionate when I'm working in different fields as much as I'm passionate about building this personal projects that has no connection with income, that has no connection with business, that has no connection with money, but I still really enjoyed it very much. So that's how I knew personally, I think. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it does. I really appreciate just like your openness with everything that you've been sharing. There's another question here, touching on mental health. Like, how do you keep your mental health and your boundaries while you're working with others? How do you manage that? They feel like it's important to work with others, but just want to know any tips on how to manage.
So for me, I have to identify my trigger points. What like working with others, what I really don't like, and what really like tips me off, and what I can actually tolerate. So I really had to learn that, and I really had to learn how I respond to these different situations. For example, I mean, this is very personal, but I'm just gonna say it anyway if it helps some people. Whenever I am responding in anger or similar to that, to upsetting situations, I found out that it ruins my day, and I don't really enjoy it. Like, I don't really feel comfortable with it. So I would rather like calm a situation or calm myself and somehow stay away from situations and respond to a situation right away. So I found that out through different confrontations with different groups. So you really have to look into yourself and understand what triggers you mentally and what you can tolerate and what you can't really stand, and then try to work with those people who can somehow share similar values and similar perspectives. What was the second question? Sorry.
And just mental health in general.
Okay.
Yeah, which I think you definitely touched on. I mean, you know, the fact that so much of your work is personal, especially recently, I think you're totally right that, you know, you really need to be honest with yourself and, you know, prepare yourself before kind of starting a project like that, or know that there might be challenges along the way and really be honest with yourself about, you know, how you're going to deal with that, or allow yourself time to deal with that. Yeah, for sure. But thank you.
I mean,
oh, please continue. Yeah.
Yeah, I think generally with the collaboration, the point of collaboration is building something, and you want to collaborate with someone that's interested in building something. And necessarily collaboration doesn't mean that you have to create a result. Of course, if you are working towards an exhibition, you have to create an exhibition. But other than that, collaboration can be someone, like you can have like a common theme, and then you can both work in different directions, but at the end meet at that common theme. Like, yeah, so it doesn't really necessarily has to be challenging always. Yeah.
I meant to mute myself, not turn my video off. That is the most poignant thing, I think, to end on, because that is exactly, I mean, that is, I think sometimes as, I mean, people who have picked up a camera because we want to change the world, for lack of a better cliche, or to make a difference, make an impact. Sometimes we put so much pressure on ourselves to make that happen, and, you know, pitching and applying for contests and grants and juggling a million other things. It's like when we don't necessarily see the results that we think we want to see in that moment, we get so down on ourselves. And so I really love what you said just now, that, you know, the point of collaboration is to build something. And I think that can even mean within your own self, on your own path as a photojournalist, right? We've said this, or as a photographer, we've said this many times throughout the weekend, that start small, start building. I mean, and again, for another lack of a better cliche, Rome was not built in a day, right? So remember to have patience and compassion with yourself and with others. You know, like you said, Maheder, you don't necessarily have to create a result, right? This is a creative profession. This is a profession where we interact with others, and where we often need to work slowly within ourselves and with others. So I love, you know, that you have left us with that reminder as we continue on from the essentials and from this time this weekend, is that, you know, basically, you know, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and just do the act of collaborating in community, your own photography, and just work slowly, build slowly over time. And, you know, like Lindsay Weatherspoon said, you know, yesterday, you know, trust your process. I mean, we've heard so much good advice from so many people this weekend. And I really love that note that you ended on. It doesn't always have to be challenging, right? I feel like a lot of the time we're all just a bunch of masochists trying to like make this impossible, you know, feel as impossible as it has to be. And it's not, you know, this doesn't have to feel so challenging all the time. So be kind to yourself. And so yeah, thank you again, Maheder, for all of this really valuable advice that you've shared with us. It's been such an amazing weekend, and you really ended it on a very thoughtful note that we can all just take with us as we move forward into our futures and our careers and into tomorrow. So thank you very much, Maheder. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this amazing discussion. Yeah, it's a really nice reflection to look at back what to look back at the few years yeah, in the past, and yeah, this has been really interesting. Thank you so much.
Thank you too. Thank you. It's that point where I just want to keep talking forever, so the essentials never ends. But Polly, I think we're there. I think we're there. Maheder, please look, everyone is giving you a lot of thanks in the chat. I hope you take a moment to look at the comments in the chat while Polly and I take us on the exit of the essentials.
Can't believe it. Season 4 is done. 2 beautiful days of just so much information and free game. So thank you first of all to all of you who contributed to the beautiful conversations we've been having, all the great questions and discussions, and who attended our little meet and greet yesterday, our little community happy hour. This weekend has been amazing. We couldn't have done it without you guys, the teachers, and our partner, Photo Wings.
Yes, thank you so much again to all of our teachers. That's what you just said, Polly, but I also wanted to say thank you. Thank you a million times. Gosh, we're just so thankful. As a reminder, we just want to give a shout out to all of the organizations that have made this possible. Again, the Everyday Projects, we're just a super cool community of photographers that making it happen. If those who have been to every class haven't memorized this slide by now, you have not been paying attention. And Polly, the one and only. Oh, I wish we need to figure out, I think I said this last year, so we really need to figure out how we can do this from the same location next year. But Polly, thank you again.
And one of the things I want us to do is like all the amazing like places that people are dropping in the chat where they're tuning in from, like let's just like spin the map and like go to one of them. Like let's go to Brazil and do this live in Brazil.
Yeah,
I'd love to do that.
Agree. Photo Wings. Polly and I's brains are a little fried, I think. But Photo Wings, Polly, you want to give the last shout out to Photo Wings?
Of course. Again, thank you, Photo Wings, for making this free and accessible to our communities. If you haven't already, do check out their website. They have a lot of great resources on there, and all of these classes that we just had this weekend and our previous seasons, the first 3 seasons, are available for free replay in Spanish and French.
Yes. All right. I think, look, it won't click further. That means we're really done. Thank you everyone so much. This has been so amazing. Thank you for tuning in, for engaging. Y'all have been so awesome engaging, asking such incredible questions. I myself have learned so much this weekend. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
And if you haven't already, like Danielle said, you can check us out and follow what we are up to outside of the essentials. Both of our organizations do amazing work throughout the year. So please do follow. And some of you have already done this, but please feel free to tweet at us, tag us in your IG stories of what you've enjoyed throughout these last 2 days. We love to see that. Our teachers love to see that as well. Let them know you appreciate it, not just in the chat, but online. It helps us, again, keep track of what we should continue on for next year. And Danielle mentioned this at the very beginning. There will be a survey sent out. So please do, when you get that email from us, our little follow-up thank you email, please do open it and pay attention and fill out the survey. The survey helps us inform of what we should bring for the next seasons and what you guys want to learn. So please do take a second to, fill out that survey and let us know what you want to hear for next season.
And so until next season, please connect with all of us through the interwebs, and we look forward to seeing you all again next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good day further.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.